Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. We always tend to want to post videos of our successes, but we always try to hide our failures. And when it comes to new gardeners, a lot of times they get disappointed in the way that the garden had performed for the season, especially because they've just started out. And so this video is going to be about failures, or are they really failures? Pardon the background noise. The healthy turquoise corn was mostly a failure. You can see how sparse the kernels are on these cobs. Of course, some of them, these were poor developed cobs, but on a lot of these you can see very few kernels. There's some cobs left. I'm going to go ahead and let them dry. These others had fell off the stalks. But what I wanted to say about this was for raising seed for next year's crop, which I probably have enough on this one. Well, actually more than enough for what I planted in seed. So I will have plenty of seed, so it was a success in that area. But the problem was, and we'll go out here to the plot, they were planted about a foot apart, and when they were planted that close, the leaves or the foliage got to where it blocked the silks on the cobs to where they didn't pollinate good, even though they were close. So there wasn't a problem about pollen getting there. If it can't get down to the silks, then it's not going to pollinate. But the second fail was, I wanted to see if I could grow this in my market bed instead of as a field crop. And as you can see, I have to pull up corn because the root system, you cut it off and it's possibly it just grow back from the root. So the second fail is that as planting as a no dig bed, it's not a recommended crop. Right next to it here is my parsnips. Now I planted these twice. Now I do have some parsnips that actually did germinate, but as you can see, it's very few. So this was an ultimate fail. What I'll do is I'll come back and I'll interplant in this area with another crop. But as you can see, the germination was really sparse on this. The second, or the late planting of summer squash. Now this is, you could weigh this one way or the other. As far as I'm going to weigh it as a semi-fail. I mean, and it still is producing, but the situation is that late blight has come in here, and there's no way to take care of it because the way the rain has come, you try to treat it and then it rains again, and then you try to treat it and it rains again. So what we've got is these plants that are really struggling. They're still trying to produce, and I have another fail over here with my Spineless Perfection squash, which this was kind of just a test of the seed. I planted a few, but for one, I should have tested them somewhere else because I've got so much intermixing of the cross-pollination that you end up with green, a lot of green on the yellow squash and stuff. And normally I don't do this, but this was just kind of a test to see. But they were planted way too close. So we're going to say this was another fail. We're going to say the Impador early carrots were basically a fail. There's a lot of bare spots in there. compared to the other variety that was planted right here beside them, which did better. They did have a fail on part of it, but this fail is something that can be adjusted for next year. It's always a learning process whenever you decide to grow crops that are out of season. This red curry squash was planted in a place where it didn't have much room, plus blight has taken over. It still did have a little bit of fruit, but it needed more room. This batch of red curry squash is doing great, but the blight has taken over it too. And as you can see, blight has killed most of the pumpkins. The rest of the winter squash, as you can see, blight has gotten it. Now, some of it is still trying to go. A lot of these with the big leaves, these are actually plants that have come from the other end and come all the way up here. These are North Georgia candy roasters. And if I can zoom in, which I can't quite get the picture, but you could actually see the squash up here in this area. So this was a fail trying to put winter squash, which does take up a lot of room, to not dedicate enough space to them. And of course the late blights got to them too. A lot of you new gardeners, you take and plant a garden and you end up with a lot of the problems that a lot of us experienced gardeners have. And your crop fails. Some crops do good. A lot of them thrive. You can see the lima beans, the purple peas, they're really doing good. But you take a lot of times, and because you have a failure, you get discouraged. But realize sometimes this is what's going to happen. You don't know when rain's going to come. Even though I don't water overhead, I use drip tape. When the rain comes in and you end up with problems, and you get blight, but you can't keep it treated because the problem with the rain, you just learn from it. Maybe next time you're going to use or plant a crop that's going to be less susceptible to the type of disease that killed your plants the year before. Maybe you're going to plant at a different time. But use this all as a learning experience. Don't take and get discouraged and say, I'm not going to garden anymore. Some of you, maybe your tomatoes are they're a late crop, and you didn't even get tomatoes off them. We'll learn from that. Figure a way to get your tomatoes in earlier. Now these are a second crop. It's a late crop, and of course those of you up north would worry about even seeing a tomato. But you know, these might get me a good production of tomatoes, but then again they might not. But that's not going to discourage me from trying. And understand that. Use your failures as a lesson so that you'll be more successful. Yeah, that's all for this video, and I hope this encourages you to keep going. Happy gardening.